welcome to the second edition of Political Hardball. I'm Karl Kandalavala II, coming to you as always from our studios in New York. Today's program, a special focus on the aging population in India. But before we go on to the program, I'd like to thank all our viewers who wrote in and sent us emails following our debut episode of Political Hardball last Saturday, July the 7th, right here on Jus Punjabi. Thank you for all your kind comments. Today's episode of Political Hardball is about the aging population in India, and we have a very special guest. Joining me today in the studio is Nawroz Dondi from AgeWell, which is the name of the organization. Nawroz, let me put something in perspective for our viewers before we go on. To give you just an example, the US Census Bureau in its latest figures released for 2011 counted the population of the United States at exactly 312.8 million people. In India, the aging population alone, that is people over the age of 60, is more than 100 million strong. So almost one-third the population of the United States is an aging population in India, and of those 100 million plus, 50 million need your help and support. Now, Rose, why don't you put this in perspective for us? Some numbers to start off the program about the aging population, as I said, of people who are age 60 and above, and how 50 million plus live below the poverty line and could use a helping hand.
Himanshu, who's the founder of AgeWell, and I are really privileged and honored to be on a fantastic show like this on your channel and being in a position to spread the word and communicate this with our wonderful viewers all over North America. Coming to the issue of the old and the aged in India, I think it's a massive issue and problem which, honestly speaking, hasn't got its due recognition. It's not only about old people, but it's also about old people who need genuine help. They are destitute, they are very poor, and in the last few years, that number has been growing. Besides the issue, the hardball issue of numbers, I think it's also an issue of making people aware of what we consider as old age liability. In schools and colleges, when books and curriculums are being prescribed, they actually mention that people below the age of 16 or 18 and those above the age of 60 are considered as liabilities. Now, if you start brainwashing a child at such an early age that the moment people in your family are crossing 60 are a liability, that child will start behaving in a different manner. And that, unfortunately, has caused this, I would say, apathy towards the older people in our country. Coming to the issue of what they need, how much they need, what can be done, I think the number of aspects when it comes to old age is huge. It's not only about financial issues, it's about emotional issues. A lot of the old people are depressed because they've been left high and dry by their children. Children who are now staying in the US or all over the world.
In India, there's no such thing as social security, which we have over here in the United States.
Absolutely. So, in that population which is aging today, only a small number have worked in governmental jobs. And in that area, they have something called a pension to look forward to.
But that's a minuscule amount.
That's a very small number. So those who have not worked in governmental jobs or have no pension are really high and dry, both financially as well as emotionally. And that is really where we as AgeWell are trying to step in for the last 14 years and provide some kind of succor and some kind of relief to that group.
I must confess that I'm from India myself, though I haven't lived there in almost 30 years, and it never struck me about the aging population because I hate to say this, but there's no polite way to say this, but I'm fortunate. My mother is 82, but she's wealthy. so I don't have to worry about her upkeep. But after meeting you and Himanshu, I understand now that not all people are fortunate enough to have some money to fall back on, and that's where Age Well comes in, and that's where Himanshu is going to touch on what can be done to help these elderly people.
Absolutely.
But now, Rose, I'd like to hear from you too. What do you think our viewers can do to help the aging population and to help Age Well, for example?
Well, I think the biggest request or our appeal to the viewers out here is that they've all come from the land called India, and they have in some form or the other somebody out there who's old and aged. And like you said, some of them may not necessarily be financially requiring help, but may want it emotionally, may want it in some other way. And that is where we would appeal to this very, very, I would call it wide diaspora of Indians who are living in this wonderful country called America, to maybe dip into their pockets and support a cause called Age Well. Maybe it's a small or a large donation, doesn't really matter, but it goes a long way to supporting old people who don't have others to provide for them. I'll give you an example of what happened just 6 months ago. And we had gone, Himanshu and I had gone to meet a very large media organization in India called Hindustan Times. And if you go and
I've heard of them, of course.
Yeah.
So have many of our viewers.
I'm sure the viewers are also aware of the Hindustan Times as one of the largest English dailies in the country and in the world. So we went to them, and we have been over the years trying to collect clothes and woolies for the destitute and old people in the northern part of the country,
where it's cold,
where it gets very cold. It gets colder than it gets in America at times, because there is no central heating, there are no heated areas. So we went there, and over the last few years, Himanshu and Age Well have done a fantastic job of picking up as much as possible from people's genuine donations. But because we had the support of a media vehicle like the Hindustan Times, and they promoted that and they advertised that in their newspaper for almost, I think, 3 or 4 weeks, and we got 7-8 advertisements. We got more than 200,000 garments which poured in from all parts.
That's
and
fantastic.
That was a fantastic response we got from the public out there, because they realized that they could play a small little role and help us in many ways. And that's our appeal to this wonderful audience of your channel. We really hope that they will open their hearts, that they will, like I said, dip into their wallets and support a cause which finally, we have to all remember, we are all going to grow old.
There's no avoiding that.
There is no avoiding that. I mean, though there is a fantastic song by Bob Dylan which says forever young, we would love to imagine that and think that we are all going to remain forever young, but one fine day we will all get old. Now, whether we all get old in America or we all get old in India, we'll have to find something to do, something to use that time in our golden years. And if all the viewers over here can just log on to www.agewellfoundation.org, there is so much information out there.
We're flashing it on the screen, the name of your website.
That'll be great, because the more you flash it, the more they can see it and the more they can log on quickly. There is information about what Age Well is, there's information about what Age Well does, and more importantly, there's information about some amazing research which Age Well has been conducting year after year after year on the state of the old and aged in India, which can be very useful information and can actually throw light on the plight of people in this segment.
In fact, we are sharing some of that information from your website right here on today's edition of Political Hardball, just to put in perspective for our viewers here in the United States about how difficult it is for people, for old people in India, and people who are not as fortunate, for example, like my parents, who fortunately don't need my financial help and have money of their own. But 50 million plus don't and need help.
Absolutely.
And as you said, and as Himanshu pointed out, the numbers are staggering. almost 1/6 the population of the United States is living below the poverty line and are aged too. So it's like a double whammy. They're over 60
Correct.
and they're poor.
And I think the awareness of that is one part of it. Can we bring dignity to their old age? Can we retool their skills so that if the person has had some past experience as an accountant or as an engineer, how can he or she use that skill now in a new role? It's a second innings in their life. I think it's much more than just doling out cash. It's about an employment exchange. So imagine if the two of us are media presenters and after we are 60 or 65, we're out of the limelight. What do we do with our skills? Can we use our skills and retool them to train people? Now, how do you find an opportunity? How do you become a teacher? How do you become an assistant in a grocery store? So that employment exchange needs funds to run, because there are call centers to be managed. There are people who are there. There are 80,000 volunteers who are out there in the entire country trying to connect with the old people. I think about 25,000 old people are connected with every day. And it could be from providing medicines to that person who can't unfortunately walk out of home and buy them, or paying off the electricity bills, or helping them to buy a railway ticket, or just sometimes being there to give them the feeling that there is someone who cares.
Yeah, as you correctly pointed out, many of them suffer from depression.
Correct.
Because they're alone, because they're lonely, because they don't have any loved ones, or they've been abandoned by their children. And as you correctly pointed out, sometimes they need help for simple things like buying a railway ticket or just having somebody buy them their daily medicine.
Wonderful thing, we in India have always prided ourselves in the last few decades that India is a very young country. As I say, almost 50% of the country is in the youthful age.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, that youthful age has to finally grow old.
Correct.
And if we don't instill that understanding in that youth today, when they grow old, they won't have people who are getting young, coming into the young bracket, caring a damn about those who have now moved on, and that number is going to swell. This 100 million is a very small number.
Mm-hmm. It continues to grow.
Absolutely. With every passing year, it will grow. So with every passing year, that 100 will become 150 and become 200 and become 300. So that the enormity of the situation and of the problem which is today being felt
Mm-hmm.
will be magnified and multiplied manifold in the next 10, 15 years' time. Those who are 45 today will be 60 in 15 years' time.
Correct.
So you can imagine what's going to happen. It's going to be a huge issue of managing old age.
India already is, I think, over 1 billion people in terms of population.
Correct.
And there is talk that India will cross China in terms of being the most populous country in the world.
Correct.
And of course there will be an aging component to the population.
Absolutely.
And it's not unforeseen that someday there'll be more than 300 million people who are 60 plus, which is more than the population of the United States, just to put in perspective for our viewers out there.
The other thing is longevity. We've all been discussing this even at the UN and other places like and forums where we get to chance to speak, that today the average Indian's lifespan has increased. So if you look at just a generation ago,
As has, I should point out, as has the lifespan all over the world.
all over the world. So people are living longer. Now obviously those who are now living longer haven't seen their parents or their grandparents live till 75 or 80. So today is now par for the course. So it is genuinely an issue that when these people go beyond 60 and 65 and their productive years, what do? How are they taken care of? And like you mentioned about your own parents, if you have financial support, you have things to do. Mm-hmm. You can travel, you can go to the club, you can go for a holiday because you're financially in a position to do so. What happens to those who can't? And that can be a bigger killer than just bad health. Today, what we are also trying to do, on one hand, manage the lives or help the old people. I think as much is also to influence the young people as to how they can play a role in making old age a happy part of people's lives.
Touch now, Nowroz, before I let you go, I'd like you to touch on the role of the United Nations and Age Well's Association. It has special consultative status at the United Nations. Maybe you can briefly tell our viewers about how Age Well has been helped by the UN and what exactly has been done on the front for bringing this to the attention of the growing population all over the world.
Well, there are two parts to your question. One part I will try and answer, one part Himanshu will answer with more detail. What I would like to say is that there are literally hundreds and thousands of NGOs in various areas, whether it's for children or old people or other social requirements and networks, who are out there doing some very good work. The UN recognizes a few of them and gives that status, which is a great and a rare honor. I think the fact that Age Well has been recognized, Age Well today is having that right to be able to attend the UN meetings and influence decision making, is itself a fantastic appreciation by a body like the UN.
That's why you're here in New York, to attend the UN session.
And we had the meeting on the 3rd. We have another meeting tomorrow with the session. And what we're trying to do is also flag certain very important research information, some things which Age Well has actually initiated in India, where data is passed on to the UN. And it's a very interesting amalgamation of a number of things. Poverty eradication was the topic day before yesterday. Now, poverty eradication and old age go hand in hand. So though the focus is not only on old age or elderly people in this world, it's about poverty, and poor old people are contributing to that poverty in a very big way. So how do we as Age Well come in and recommend some learnings from our own experiences, and also learn from people around the world and apply that in India, is where I think our experience at the UN is very, very handy.
Well said, Nowroz. And before I let you go, one more time, if you can tell our viewers how they can help in terms of visiting your website. We're flashing it on our screen. We at Jus Punjabi would like to get involved with Age Well. We want to help too. It's news to me, a lot of what you and what Himanshu have shared with us and our viewers. One more time, if you can share your website.
Yes, I would like to make that appeal again to my dear friends who are watching this program, all the people who are here in America and Canada and wherever in the world you are watching this program. Please do log on to our website. I will repeat the address. It's www.agewellfoundation.org. Any contribution, any help, any suggestion is welcome. I don't think we are above that at all, and we'll be very happy to get your inputs, and of course a little bit of help from friends always goes a long way. Thank you very much for having me on the show, Karl.
Thank you, Nowroz, for being here, and thank you very much for all the wonderful work you're doing for old people in India. As you correctly said, we're all going to get old, and that includes me too.
All of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a great pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.